Artlist.io.
Hello and welcome to Rainbow Dreamcatcher, the Love Podcast. My name is Nilla Berry White. I am a licensed psychotherapist, relationship expert, and your guide to friendships. And I'm here with my dear and loving husband.
I'm her co-host and loving husband, Big Sexy, here to provide levity.
That's the jokes. So we're going to continue with our series on friendships. And I thought today we would focus on an area of friendship that I hear a lot, I have experienced, I think you've probably experienced, and that is the crushing question of, do I want to move this friendship into a situationship?
And romance.
Can I turn this friendship into romance? Today we're going to be talking about the friends to lovers relationship pathway. Does it make sense? What are the pitfalls? And what can you do if you have found yourself suddenly in a crush with someone that you are just kind of like friends with?
Mm-hmm. Also, I want to say happy Valentine's Day
Also,
to all the colorful humans out there.
mm-hmm.
This is dropping on Valentine's Day.
Happy day of love, gal.
It's a day of love. No, I don't say couples day. It's a celebration of love, whether it be self-love, love of another, love of, situations. It's a day of love.
Yeah, I wish there were some self-love presents. I'm sure there are some self-love presents.
There are. I know some websites you can visit.
I'm sure. And if anybody would like to sponsor, we would then tell you about those websites.
That's right. That's right. We promote your ad here.
Yeah. So let's talk about it. I know that particularly when I was very young and just starting to date, that I had some particular notions about what dating had to be, what it had to look like, especially. And it turns out that we get indoctrinated in a couple different ways about what we think of romantic relationships. So I guess my first thought is let me ask this question. First question. Did you at any point in your life think about what strategies you would use to find a romantic partner? And did you think it would be something that would be like I'm going to meet a stranger and fall in love with this person? Did you think you're going to help me understand what your kind of romantic notions were when you were growing up?
Well, I had several.
Okay.
I'm a hopeless romantic. I always have been. I've been that since I was young.
Mm-hmm.
So there was always that I was going to meet somebody in my class and we'd, get teamed up in some kind of project and we fall in love. And then I became an actor and I thought, I'll be in this play with this person and we'll have that, on stage chemistry that translates to off stage chemistry. I became a poet. I thought for sure I'd be able to get the women with my words. I have lovely words. I write amazing poetry.
You were going to woo.
I was going to write these poems. Again, I love Scenario de Bergerac and the modern day version Roxanne with Steve Martin of, the wordsmith providing all these magical words. And then I realized that the wordsmith didn't really get the girl. The wordsmith was behind the scenes of the jock or the really super handsome dude.
And by the way, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the difference in attraction and what we would call attractive mate or assortive mating, which is how people sort themselves according to attractiveness. That also plays a role in how people move from friendship to lovers. And it turns out that they do that differently depending on how they start.
Yeah. And so then I honestly, specifically about this topic, thought the best way I was going to get a partner was by becoming friends first. And then, because once they know you and they're familiar with you and they like you, then you can kind of, go into that position.
So I'm always of two minds about that, right? Because there is, as someone who has identified as female for the whole of my life, there is also the stereotype of the creepy dude that just wants to be friends with you so he can kind of move the relationship along. And so I've always been very hesitant about that. As like, if somebody told me that was their strategy, I'd kind of be like, oh, I don't know that we can be friends.
Yeah. But, you know, I didn't tell nobody that was my strategy.
Well, no, of course, yeah.
But also, what ended up happening is I just end up with a lot of friends because I'd rather be friends first. Mm-hmm. And I was very much, if it goes down that pathway, great, wonderful, yay. I'm now in a relationship with my friend. And if it doesn't, cool. I at least have a friend.
Yeah. Well, it turns out that most Americans are actually indoctrinated in really different ways, and we behave differently than the ways we are indoctrinated. It's so weird. So when I looked at the research first about attraction, almost all of the attraction research is about stranger attraction or acquaintance attraction. But there was this big kind of like super empty space in the research about the movement from friendship or from friendship to intimate partnership or intimate relationship. And it turns out there are a couple different reasons for that. One is that we have this, at least in the West, a kind of romanticized view of romance. Mm-hmm. Apparently, there are two different kinds of romantic paths, right? The one that we tend to value in the West is the one that we call passion-driven. And that's typically between folks who don't know each other. It's an emotional arousal and like a positive experience. It often involves a positive sexual experience with someone that I don't know very well. And if you look at our movies and you look at, you know, all the rom-coms, everything's about how folks meet cute, right? And then the journey to finding out that this was the special one. And it's primarily passion-driven. Friendship driven is actually a different strategy. And it turns out it is actually the strategy that most people use, but that researchers weren't studying.
Huh.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe not until Usher's song. Was it Friends or Lovers?
Well, Usher's not a researcher, but yeah.
Usher and Ludacris.
Neither one of those.
They did the musical research.
I can't think of anything that would put them in a research format.
the R&B hip hop research of Friends and Lovers.
None of that. No, I don't think that's how that works. So here's the reason why. I actually found the reason why really fascinating. One is because it's really hard to actually study. You know, at what point do people move from friends to more than friends, right? That can involve a lot of different points. Maybe it involves sex, maybe it doesn't. And so it's difficult to actually study when that attraction takes place. And also because those conversations are private, right? So, you know, people who are meeting a stranger will most often talk about the meeting of that stranger in the research, but they don't often talk about their friends or the internal kind of feelings of attraction they have for that friend. So yeah, it's just been like crickets until 2021. Wow. Landmark study in 2021 that actually looked at 7 different studies across the spectrum about how people choose mates and select relationships. And it turns out that when you look at everything on a whole, 68% of people start their primary intimate partnerships as friends.
Well, we're in that percentage.
We are.
I mean, technically we started off as like not enemies.
Well, we weren't enemies, but we certainly weren't friends. I don't know that category. We weren't friends.
Yeah.
No.
But right before we were lovers, we were friends.
Yeah, I don't know. The trajectory for us was very different. We would have been like a friends with benefits trajectory, as opposed to what ends up happening with friendship pathways, which the average time of being friends is actually about 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Right. So it's a much longer term investment.
Yeah, we were
nowhere close to that. Right. But the research shows that most people actually do not only discover their relationships through friendships, but also would deem that to be the most desirable way to meet somebody, right? The least desirable way to meet someone being like a social media group or an online app. I don't know why that is considered the least desirable, but that's what the polls say.
I may have ideas of why like dating apps and online is the least desirable. because it starts off with I think if you're on a dating app, you view that as desperation.
Okay.
Right, because you're not able to meet people out in the real world, so you go to the dating app.
I don't know if that's still the case. I think at this point, I was talking to a couple of folks who are just out and dating right now, and I was just asking them about what the dating scene was like. First of all, they all said it was terrible. Like to a person, they said it was terrible, and that primarily that the only way that they're meeting people is through apps.
Right,
and so they don't have an opportunity to actually build friendships with folks because there's already an agenda in place,
right,
in some ways. So,
and I think that's why people say that it's the least ideal, because there's pushback upon that necessity, as it were.
Sure. So the thing about this, though, is that just because it is a good way to find a relationship, and also because people deem it to be a good way to find a relationship, doesn't mean it is without its challenges, right? So you're going to find a couple of challenges if you have an inkling that you want to move your primary friendship into a primary relationship.
Good way to define that.
Now, here's the good news about this. When they look at the research, if I want to move my friendship, and I'm going to be very careful about saying this because I don't want to, spark any stalkers out there.
Right.
But there is research that shows that if in a friendship pair, someone can project into the future that the other person also would be interested in them, they start initiating what we call relationship initiating behaviors, right? Which actually has a higher chance of success. So having a higher chance of success because they are actually starting to do the things that would cause someone to want to be in a relationship with them, right? Whatever those behaviors are. So the good news is, if you have a crush on a really good friend, and if you think they might possibly have a crush on you, that actually is more possible because of that belief. Strange but true. Totally strange but true, right?
I like that.
So if you're interested in someone, hold out hope. Don't stalk them. If they tell you they're not interested, of course, pay attention to that. But also know that you have a higher chance of connecting with this person if you think this is someone you can actually pull, right?
And you should know because they're your friend.
Now, here's what's interesting about that too, is friendship dating evolves differently than stranger dating.
Okay.
Right? So with friendship dating, with stranger dating, this is where the assortative mating comes in. The research says that people will pair off according to their level of attractiveness, right?
Okay.
So, not every couple is going to be Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, and those people ain't together anymore anyway, right?
Right.
But not everybody's going to be a gorgeous couple. But we do find that with stranger dating, people tend to pair in what would be considered their attractiveness range, whatever that would look like.
7 and 8 date 7 and 8.
7 and 8 date 7 and 8, and so on and so forth.
Right.
In terms of friendship, that actually has a different kind of assortative dating mix, because the relative attractiveness of the person, the attractiveness of that person, is tied intimately to their characteristics and qualities.
Not so much their physical appearance.
Well, yes.
I mean, that's not so much, right?
But not as much, right? And so when you do happen to see like what we would call non-assortative mating, which is where someone would be dating a person that technically would be of a different attractiveness level, that typically those people start off as friends.
Oh, that's like when we see somebody walking down the street, you'd be like, "Ooh, he must got money."
Well, sometimes people call it like the 10. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The combined 10.
The combined 10, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and I hate to say it that way because there's so many judgments about that, and we're talking about attractiveness.
Yeah, but we're not judging, we're laughing.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any way to talk about dating and mating without talking about attractiveness. And
it's a part of it.
Recognizing that there is, a range of what is considered attractive, even though all people are beautiful. They all have beautiful spirits. We all offer something different. And, physical characteristics in dating and mating do seem to make a significant difference.
Yeah, they align. And that makes sense. You know, when you can, yeah, you're viewing somebody based on their personality versus seeing them walk down the street, be like, ooh, damn, I'm right. If you're friends, then that kind of goes out the window. It's like, oh yeah, no, I mean, they're good looking. I mean, there's still some attraction. There's still some kind of attraction.
Sure.
You know, but I think that number gap increases.
Yeah, nope, it does. It definitely does, at least according to the research. And you know, of course, this is just what I've been able to scrounge up today.
Have you ever dated a friend?
I have dated many friends. I hate to say it that way. Let me think about this. Yes, you know, I found myself often in like the limbo of like, are we friends or are we dating?
Okay.
Right. So, you know, I think my strategy, because I was such not a forward kind of person, I was just so kind of like reticent, that my strategy was definitely like, I'm gonna be, well, honestly, my first strategy is I'm gonna stare at you and hope that you notice that I'm standing here. That's the first thing. I'm just gonna kind of stare and hope that you catch the vibes. So my second strategy is always, of course, to get to know this person, to be a friend, and then stare and also hope you notice me. So yeah, I think it's safe to say I have dated quite a few friends.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of if I've dated any friends. I know that I've wanted to. I think only one or two actually resulted in an actual attempt at a date.
Right.
One was okay. The other went down and it was terrible.
Why was it terrible? I gotta know.
Okay. So, mutual friend of ours.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Whisper it to me.
Well, I'll
cover your mouth.
I'll explain it in this way.
Cover your mouth and tell me.
I'll explain it this way. This person is involved in our relationship story.
So we've got to go off camera for just 1 second. Y'all, hold on 1 second. Okay, thank you. I told you to cover your mouth. What's wrong with you?
That's the only people in the video, whatever. And anyhow, this person knows about it and would be pretty fine.
I'm listening.
Yeah. Anywho, there was a point in time where we were like, oh, well, maybe they were lamenting about not finding any dating prospects, and I was attracted. And I'm so let's go on a date. Let's see what happened. And it was horrible. It was horrible.
You keep saying it
because
why. I want to know. Like,
I was not a good dater at the time.
Oh no! Well, tell me about the bad date.
I thought that it would be fun.
Okay.
If she joined me as my date.
Yes.
To a game night. Not realizing, and she said it would be fine and be enjoyable.
Yeah, you know, that's a very public space to try something out,
right? And you know, I was like, oh, it'll be friends, people we know, and it'll be a comfort thing and whatever. And it was just awkward. And weird. Not a great time was had by all.
Yeah.
And so it was like, oh, this didn't work for us.
Yeah.
We're better off as friends.
Well, that leads to the downsides of moving from friend to relationship, because there are some pitfalls. One pitfall is something you describe, and I think I see it more and more now in the beach town in which we spend our time, what we call the neighborhood watch.
Oh.
That is, living in a small enough place or being in a small enough group that the test from friendship to relationship will be not only under the scrutiny of everybody, but often with the kind of tacit encouragement of everybody, which this is something that we definitely experience. And
all aspects of it. I love the fact that part of our story was to our friends, I was Mr. Man.
Yeah. Just so you know, folks, in terms of that part of the story, until we decided to become like more official, when we were just kind of like friends with benefits, and not even really friends, we were like acquaintances with benefits.
Right. I don't know. By the time I thought,
well, I mean, we were casual friends.
Yeah.
We were casual friends. We were like besties.
We were not.
No, but we were, friends with benefits. And I just decided that he didn't deserve a name because like this was not going to be permanent in my life. So why have a name out there?
It was just fling status.
It was fling status, right? So yeah, introducing you and me as us to the neighborhood was an interesting transition. And folks can find that to be a pitfall. Fortunately for us, it was not.
Right.
Sometimes folks find that like what they get is a bunch of hate
Right.
because the neighborhood is not happy with whatever this pairing is for whatever reason. Sometimes they'll find that they get tacit approval, but that comes with its own pressure, right? Because if stuff goes wrong, everybody's rooting for you.
And one way or the other.
Everybody's in your business. And if it goes wrong, then it goes wrong, and everybody has to know.
Yeah. And then people take sides.
And people take sides. That's when we start to get the divvying of the social friends, the divvying of the social circle, which happens with divorce, but like hopefully it won't happen with just friendships. My hope is that folks kind of learn that like, oh, this is not great for us, so they back away.
Right.
But that's really one of the fears, is that I'm going to be under public scrutiny. Another fear is like, is this something that's going to affect my work? If we work in the same area, if we work in the same arena. The thing about being friends is that typically we have similar kinds of interests.
Right.
We enjoy similar kinds of things. That means we might do the same kind of work. It means we might have met in school. It means we might live in the same area. Whatever that would be, all those things that are positives can really easily turn to negatives, right? Like imagine, I remember this one. I have to change some details here. Changing some details, guys. Switching some stuff around in my brain. So imagine that you're in a city and you're living in an apartment complex. And, as people have a tendency to do, you jump on the app and what do you know? There's somebody right down the hall. And so you meet the neighbor right down the hall and you hit it off and you're having a great time until you don't. Now the question becomes, how do you navigate living with and seeing that person on a regular basis while you continue your life, including your dating life?
And watching them do the same.
Hearing stuff through the walls.
Ooh, that close.
People proximity makes a difference. I mean, we really hate to say this, but like as creatures, we tend to choose whatever is easiest and accessible to us. And if somebody's next door and they kind of fit the bill, sometimes that's fine.
Yeah. So, you right here.
You're right here. I ain't even got to get into the car. Yeah. How convenient.
Right.
Which, I can't discount, especially living in cities like, we've been to various different cities, LA, Tokyo. I mean, if you live in certain parts of New York, I'm maybe not going to see you if I live in another part of New York that's just too hard to get to.
Right.
So geography makes a difference.
It does.
And it also makes a difference in who we choose as partners.
Yeah.
So be careful of those residential paramours.
Right. Careful about, they say don't dip your pen in company ink. Be careful about writing in the same, hallways.
That part. And I think that's mainly the challenge. The last challenge that people have, and I think this is a real legitimate fear, and it's something that folks have concern about, is that if I move this relationship into something more, I'm going to lose this friend.
That's the one that scared me the most.
Yeah. And, I think it's a sad commentary because I find that when people get into a relationship, as opposed to kind of like the experience of just, is this the right person for me or is this not the right person for me, is that people will catch a feeling. They will decide that this feeling means that we are now in love, right? And then now I'm looking to prove that we're in love. And if we're not, it's got to be because something crashed and burned. You're a terrible person, or you did something terrible, or I did something terrible. And if I put that onto my friend, of course, I don't want to be in a situation where I'm just going to look at you and like, you're just the person who's going to hurt me next. Right. So if I'm going into it with that idea that the only way that relationships end is badly, then no, you probably should not move forward with the friendship. Because again, we project is what we get.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I was definitely of the mindset that, if it didn't work out, it's cool. We can still be friends. Right. We were friends first. We try this romance thing.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, hey, we can still be friends. If we can not,
but
it doesn't always work. Some people can't do
that. Right. And so I think it's a valid and reasonable concern that people have, but that maybe they should have a little bit less, because I think that the research has scared us a little bit into this idea that friendship is something that is not going to be supported in relationship, and that it's either going to work fantastically or it's going to crash and burn.
Right.
And there's a whole lot in between that where people can, I don't know, people have different ideas about exes and spending time with people that they've been intimate with. I can't tell you what those values should be for you. I can tell you, though, that you can really find success in dating after friendship if you're thoughtful about the way that you go about it.
Right.
And that's going to include what you're going to do in any good relationship, which is set boundaries, communicate clearly, share your needs and your feelings with each other in a way that is non-judgmental. All the things you're going to do in a loving relationship, right? So my hope is that for those folks that have been eyeballing that one person and figuring out if I should move forward with this crush, yes, 68% of us say yes.
Do it.
Do it. And, for the rest of you, sorry if you did it, it's terrible.
And if you did it and you have a story about it, shoot us a message.
Let us know. I want to hear your stories. We are going to be talking about friendship for the whole of this year. And so even though we kind of snuck in some friends and lovers,
it's a friendship.
We're still going to be talking about friendship, and we're going to be talking about friendship from all aspects: how to find good friends, how to be a good friend, how to avoid bad friends, and maybe how to turn your friend into a lover.
And look, I'm looking for the other side of this of, how to maneuver when you crushing on a friend hard, and, but you can't go down that path. I want to talk about that on this episode. Let's say that for that episode.
Yeah. I mean, we could, we're like I said, we're going to be talking about friends in all different types, in all different predicaments, situations.
Yeah. So listeners, if you got a friend to lover situation, write us in, shoot us an email at rainbowdreamcatchertlp. That's TLP for the Love Podcast.
That's it.
rainbowdreamcatchertlp@gmail.com. We want to hear those stories. Now, if you like, we can get to some listener mail.
Let's do some listener mail.
All right. This comes into us from our friend Revan.
Awesome. I haven't heard this, so this will be interesting.
Revan says, Hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
Back in the day, and the subject is Friendship, episode 1.
Okay.
So this is a reply to our very first episode in this friendship series.
Can't wait to hear it. And just remind me, episode 1, we were talking about 5 things you'll find yourself doing if you are in a toxic friendship. And we'll link that below if you want to go ahead and check out that episode. It's a great episode.
So we talked about, so she says, Hi, guys. Back in the days when I had a BF, I called her by her name or referring her as best friend, no nickname. Okay. No BF at the moment. I think we talked about the different ways we enable our BFs, right? Besties, ace boom coons, all that kind of stuff, right?
Sure.
We talked about that. I consider someone a possible friend if I'm going to feel a good vibe with me to begin with. If that person is responding and listening to what I say or share and not just hearing me, depending on the response and behavior, body and facial expression, I will want to know that person better with more interaction and more sharing to keep evaluating a possible progression in the listening, caring. If I was right to sense a possibility or just a very good act like the first time. If I'm always the one asking how they are doing with a genuine interest for more than I'm good, or always the one happy for what may happen in their life and encouraging them no matter what, and being the one providing advice, suggestions, ideas to help the other one. After learning my biggest lesson recently, I will not consider that someone a possible friend.
That's fair.
All my life, I have always chased having friends around me since I couldn't find any support from my family. So it always mattered big time. Therefore, it always hurt when a friendship has run its course, and worse when I have been betrayed, manipulated, or bullied. Thanks to you, Nilla, for having pointed it out at a Sunday Mahjong. I have friends, or a BF, cherry on top of the friends. or just acquaintance in my life? Lately, I have acquaintance, possible friends, which is better than nothing at all. I don't have anyone to share my wins or my pain. Walking my spiritual path and changing vibration has cleaned up pretty much everyone I had, and not many are sticking because we don't vibe the same. So opening up can happen, but I am 3,000 times more careful with what I share. Great episode, and I can't wait to listen to the rest of this year's episodes. Revan.
Thanks, Revan. I so appreciate your taking the time to share your story. I think that's what I hear in your letter is something I hear from a lot of adults because adult friendships are really, really difficult. There's a lot that goes into adult friendships. We in a later episode, I think we're going to talk more about what I call friendship mountain. And if we think about friendship as a place where we climb with people, at the very lowest level is where we're going to find most folks, right? Those people, and those are the people who are like, hey, let's go have a coffee, and we never have a coffee. Or like, hey, how you doing? And they're like, I'm great. And, there's no like real reciprocity there. That's actually going to be the majority of people that we encounter as adults because typically adults don't spend an awful lot of time investing in friendships.
Right.
So I think the latest study showed that I think it was up until 1985, most U.S. adults would say they had between 2 and 3 good friends.
Interesting.
Right? That has gone down.
Really? What would you say in your personal? Where would you count that at?
Man, put me on the spot.
Oh, well, this is a personal thing.
Yeah. I would probably put it at. I think I'm very lucky in that I probably have, not including you, because let's exclude the intimate partnerships, right? Not including intimate partnership, I would say I probably have 4 top of the mountain friends.
Okay.
3 to 4 top of the mountain friends, right? People that I would, that I trust implicitly, that I would rely on, people who I supported, who are supportive of me, people who I am, connected to, intimately across and over time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say that's probably 3, maybe 4 people.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a little bit above average.
Right.
Slightly above average. Maybe. Well, I mean, if the average now is 2,
you're definitely above average.
Yeah, I'm batting 1,000 above average.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. But we're going to talk more about adult friendships, how to make friends, how to be a friend, how to know if I'm a good friend. And also recognizing that friendships sometimes are environmental, right? They're geographic, and they often last a season.
Yeah.
And I think it was probably one of the biggest challenges for me. And I think it sounds like for you too, Revan, according to your letter, is the idea that because we are friendly and we are having a good time together, this means that this relationship will continue. And I think I had to come to some hard realizations for me as a person that is always connective, that to learn that that's not always the case, and that these connections do not always continue, that is fine, right? And that it allows room for the good and connective and supportive relationships that we do have.
Yeah, I was having just a conversation with somebody recently that's probably the hardest part about being nomadic in nature. Mm-hmm. and traveling around and things. You meet people, you land a place, you make these connections, whatever, and then you leave again.
Right.
And I mean, that's where I'm like, thank goodness for social media, because I do get a chance to keep in touch more so than I could back when I was a kid.
Right. True.
Writing
letters and whatnot.
Yeah, writing letters, dialing on rotary phone dials, and
you had the phones. I thought you were doing the Morse code tap to tap.
No, I was just after the tap to tap tap
telegraph.
It was still the tap to tap to tap, but it was on a rotary. Yeah. The machine did the tap of the tap. I didn't have to tap it out myself.
And you'd have to call the switchboard?
I didn't have to call the switchboard, but I do remember calling. This is way off tangent, but I do remember having to call for the time. I remember calling
the time and temperature.
To call the time and the temperature. And I love how it's come full circle. Now we ask Alexa.
Mm-hmm. Now we call Alexa.
Now we talk to Alexa.
Mm-hmm.
Well, listeners, thank you so much for tuning in and hanging out with us.
Yes.
And
thanks so much for passing along this series. It seems like our first show hit a chord, and so we are hoping that you will stay tuned. We've got a lot more really interesting and fascinating information about friendships, and this year is all about how we're going to help you to improve that part of life as an adult. So stay tuned. I hope you guys are here for the whole series.
Yeah, hit us up on the social medias at Rainbow Dreamcatcher, the Love Pod on Instagram. Just email at rainbowdreamcatchertlp on gmail.com. If you want to catch us some Rainbow Dreamcatcher merch, swing on over to tpublic.com/Rainbow Dreamcatcher. I think
we'll put it in the links.
Store. Yeah. I'll definitely put it in it should be in the links now. Just check the links for that. Get your merch and all the other lovely things. We appreciate y'all tuning in. And this has been
Rainbow Dreamcatcher, the Love Podcast.
Bye-bye.
Bye.